The South Carolina Hall of Fame was founded in Myrtle Beach in 1973 to recognize and honor contemporary and past citizens who have made outstanding contributions to South Carolina's heritage, history, and progress.
Elizabeth Evelyn Wright founded one of the first institutions of higher education for African Americans in a time and place that was incredibly hostile to her and everything she stood for. Lizzie grew up in poverty in rural Georgia. She was recognized by her teachers as a bright student and pursued every opportunity that came her way.
I believe at the age of 12, a flyer, an advertisement just happened to blow by, land at her feet, and it was an advertisement for Tuskegee Institute. And so she was intrigued by that idea of going to learn, to be educated. She was reared by her grandmother, her maternal grandmother, and an uncle. Of course, that wasn't an idea that they entertained. A young lady in the South, in a rural area, not only leaving that vicinity, but to go to another state. But she was convinced that that was her calling. Her teacher saw the promise in her, knew that she was an extraordinary individual. And so the teacher and Elizabeth Evelyn started working on grandmama and uncle and made it happen. When she got to Tuskegee, not only did Booker T. Washington, the president, take an interest in her, but Mrs. Washington became that rock, that support system for her, and saw that here was someone in need, here was someone that she personally took an interest in molding and shaping, and they were able to provide the assistance to her.
Upon leaving Tuskegee, she followed in Washington's footsteps and started a small school in Hampton County, South Carolina, to educate African Americans. Local white supremacist groups did not take kindly to her efforts. They burned down her first two schools. But Elizabeth Evelyn Wright refused to give up and planned to establish her next school in Bamberg County near the town of Denmark.
Our founder, Elizabeth Evelyn Wright, was not a huge woman, a very frail, a sickly individual. And she spent many miles traveling not only from Bamberg County, but Hampton County, Colleton County, trying to raise money. Someone mentioned to her about this philanthropist, Ralph Voorhees, and so she actually had written him, and he finally responded. And so he wanted to hear more about the school and her idea. And she thought it would be best not to just continue writing him, but to go visit. And that is what she did. She came back knowing that God had answered her prayer. She was convinced that Mr. Voorhees was going to assist, and assist is what he did. One of the pieces of land that she wanted, some 280 acres, a Mr. Guest had owned it, and he had given her a price of $3,000. And so that was what she had asked Mr. Voorhees for. Unfortunately, as she got close to having secured the money, that price changed to $4,500. And if you think that's a lot of money now, and people do, you can only imagine what it was like in 1892, 1895, 1897. But it was Ralph Voorhees and his wife who chose to invest, and not just the $3,000, but the $4,500. Ultimately, the school became Voorhees Normal and Industrial School.
The new school focused on giving African Americans practical skills they needed to succeed. Emphasis on trade skills showed the influence of Booker T. Washington, who sought to use the accumulation of material wealth as a way for the Black community to gain acceptance in American society. This differed from the philosophy of W.E.B. Du Bois, another prominent African American intellectual at the time. Du Bois wanted to see Blacks receive a classical education so they could become political leaders who could advance the civil rights movement and break down institutional racism in America. While Du Bois and Washington seemed to be at odds, their goal was the same: to provide opportunities for success for young African Americans.
The institution, it just metamorphosed as it grew, as the mission itself expanded, so did the name. And so now we're a college, and there is the talk, the hope that soon we'll be a university. We thank Elizabeth Evelyn Wright for the dream. We thank her for never giving up, even in the face of obstacles and difficulties. She rocks.